I am from Hagerstown, Maryland, and I teach in North Hagerstown High School. I'm a Google trainer, and I was asked to help beginning teachers with G Suite. I did a part 1 at CES, and now I'm going to do part 2, and I'm going to do it virtually because it is December, it's holiday season, and it's hard for all of us to get together. So I'm going to do this virtually. I have been teaching for 24 years, and if you missed it, it started recording a little bit past that. My name's Fichthorn-Scumpieru, and if you have any questions, you'll see that I'll have some information at the end of my slides that will be contact information in case you need to talk with me and ask me questions. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And the first thing I'm going to show you is this is what I had gone over last time with the beginning teachers, and I'm going to do a backwards type of webinar. I'll work on this later, but they got to go over classroom, docs, slides, and I went over Flipgrid, and that was all that I went over for that day. So I will go over and make that once I make the second one that is needed now. And so I will go ahead and present this. So I will also give you a link on how to get this and my notes once I publish this. So part 2, this is G Suite in the classroom. And I'm just hoping that you guys can utilize this in the classroom, but also beyond. I use a lot of this stuff with my own children whenever they do projects, or just if I'm doing something for my church or elsewhere, I'll try to do a lot of these things. So the things that I'm going to go over in part 2 are Google Sites, Google Draw, Google Forms, Google Hangouts, and Go Formative. And I have links to each of these, to each slide, so that whenever you click on it, you'll be able to go to those. But I'll just go through the slides. So in Google Sites, I have the podcast for the Google Teacher Tribe podcast over here. This is a very good podcast for you to listen to, but I did reference certain ones that I think would be great for you to also get other ideas, or just to get something else that I had said in a different way, in a different format. So this is great for project-based learning. I used a Google site for a breakout. I put it in here as an example. I did a digital breakout with kids. It was on thinking outside the box at the beginning of the year. I had a mystery story that they had to read, and then they had to try to find a 4-digit number lock while they were reading the story. There was a paragraph that I sort of made them hone in on and find numbers in there and put them in the order in which they needed to be. I gave them some clues in case they couldn't figure out the mystery. And then they had an 8-letter lock that was a word. And then they had a puzzle to do, and it had numbers, colors, and shapes, and they had to put it in a certain order and then submit it. And it was fun because we talked about how to work through things. One thing that I did so that you could, when you go to Google Sites, if you click on this, that will take you directly to the podcast, so you can get to it. And it gives you some resources here as well. Also, if I go back to that, and I'm going to close this one so I don't go into that. So if I go into that, the long-term projects that I've used it for, I did a climate action project, and I had students actually do certain things. So we did introductions on Flipgrid, and we were reading Drowned City by Don Brown, and we put that in. But this is great if you're trying to display a project that you guys are doing. For week 2, students were asked to make presentations. I was able to put all of their presentations, whether it was an iMovie, a Prezi, a PowerPoint, whatever they did, I was able to put in there, and it was nice. We had TouchCast, we had other things in there, but I was able to put all of that in there as well. And then I could put links for the kids to see the different, I put their blogs in here. They had done blogs on what is their tribe, and that was from a Skype thing that they had done with Celine Cousteau. So there were a lot of different things that we were able to do with this. We had a video in here where we were featured. So it was just like really nice to have the kids have this as a memory also of what we had done. You could do Google Sites for group work. I have heard teachers use it in our school for kids to work on a project, and all of them make a Google site to sort of showcase their work and what they have learned. It's also great for portfolios. We have individual portfolios that we're starting. This is an example of one from last year. And we made it an English portfolio last year, but now we're making it a little bit bigger. And students were able to like showcase their work in different ways. Sometimes they would put their papers. Sometimes they would just put their projects that they had. And sometimes they could put an entire folder, which was nice, so that they could show all of their work. So it turned into, they could put reflection pieces, they could put other things for people to see, they could put a writing log in. So it was very nice for them to be able to do that. And it worked really well. I could see this working for teams as well. If you want to make a portfolio, if you're on a team and you want to showcase some of the students, or if you send things out to parents, you'd be able to do that as well. And it's also great for academic pages. For like a teacher, I made an academic page with Google Sites. I have all the stuff that I do at the beginning of the year, my welcome video. I have every unit that I do, so that students are able to go to them and see what we did, and their parents can go as well and see all of the things that we did as well. So it's just sort of nice to have a place to showcase your work. So that's Google Sites. I will also I have a thing for training for Google Sites, and I'll make sure to add that as well, so that you could, if you want to, play around with it, but it's very user-friendly. It's very nice to use. The next one is Google Draw. There's another Google Teacher Tribe podcast for that. And what I like to use it for is badging. I used it this year for a Flipgrid badge. I used Alice Keeler's part to show you how to start it so that you can actually make the badge, and she explains it very well here, so you may use that. I made a Flipgrid badge at the beginning of the year. The kids were excited because like they had a badge. I teach 10th graders, but they were still excited about the badges. Making your own creative slides. This is another link from Alice Keeler, and it shows it very detailed again how you can put a Google drawing into your Google Slides and how you can copy it in. So she shows a lot of screenshots with that, so you can see it too. Also Google Draw, I could see the kids using it to tell a story. This was in the podcast Telling a Story with G Suite, and they talk about using Google Draw as part of it. So I would definitely look at that and use that for something that you're thinking of doing, especially if kids cannot find the actual images, or they want to create their own characters or avatars for their stories. They'd be able to do that in Draw. Also for visual thinking, I like this. I had seen this where people are using Google Drawings for visual thinking. So I put this podcast in as well. And, think of graphic organizers, think of ways that students can, put what they're learning within that. So I really like that as well. Also, graphic organizers. I did find this, and people had made graphic organizers for Google Drawings. So I went ahead and shared this. I was able to find this, and this would help a lot of people I'm thinking new teachers, this would help you just get the kids to, the ones that like to do graphic organizers, they would be able to do that. So that would help you as well. And then infographics. These are sub-plans that I found on Twitter. Somebody had tweeted, and I went ahead and changed it to fit my needs. I actually use this, you know, if I'm going to be out, I would have kids do all the steps, and then they'd have enrichment activities for those kids that would finish early. But this is a way for them to check in with me, but it's all on one thing, which is sort of nice, and drawings will allow you to do that. I also do this for my ELL students. I made little stages for them to work on and steps, and they really like that as well because it's all on one place. And it's great for students to learn how to make it too. If you have a kid that's very ingenious, they like to make their own, you know, gifts or whatever. You could ask them, do you want to make, you know, for the class, do you want to make certain things that you need? And the kids that are very creative and you know who they are, you can have them work on those. And then for Google Forms, what's great about Google Forms is you can use it for a lot of things. We use it for bathroom passes. I won't click on all of these for the sake of time, but bathroom passes we use it for. The kids use a QR code. We turn the URL for the form into a QR code. They scan the QR code, they fill out the bathroom pass, and then I just have a running sheet that shows me who went to the restroom at what time and what time they came back in. So it's a nice little checklist for me, and I don't have to worry about them not signing out. They have their phones or iPads, and it just works automatically. Also for quizzes, you can set it in quiz mode. You can have it do a lot of features, like they can change the order of the questions, and they will grade them if they're multiple choice, so that's nice as well. Also, I used it for questionnaires. I ask kids questions like, you know, coming up here for Christmas, I'll ask them like, what Christmas movie would you like to see on the last day? Since usually we'll show something, you know, at the very last day before they leave. And then for voting, I've used it for voting for projects, like if they did their manifestos, which ones did you like the best? And those are the ones I hang around the room. You could use it for a lot of stuff. Also reflection. I'll show you this one. Have students reflect, like after a test, we have Park. So I would have the kids reflect on how everything went. How did the test go? What did you think I could have done better? Just so that as a teacher, I get feedback from my students in a timely fashion, and they also think about themselves as test takers. Choose your own adventure. I saw this post and I put that in where you can make a Google form, basically move to different places. I sort of did that when I did my breakout, my digital breakout with the Google Sites. I did use one of the forms and have them go to different places depending upon their answer. So you could do that. It's explained really well here. And then there was a place that did the tips and tricks. And remember, forms can be synced with Google Classroom for grading and returning grades now. So that's something that if you want to see how that works, be sure to do that. And then use QR codes with Google Forms. If you can put a QR code up, have them then go to the Google form. It's just much easier than dropping it in Google Classroom, I find, because they like to scan it and then they feel like they're filling out something that is important. Google Hangouts, I've done several. It's great to connect with educators in the county and other states. They do have now, with Flipgrid, they have Flipgrid Collab. It's hashtag Flipgrid Collab, and it's to collaborate with other educators. So you could even try to do that as well. Tweet out and say, I want to work with fifth grade students and do this type of thing and share, stories that my students wrote for them and have them critique them. You could do something like that. And then you might get a person in another country or another state that's willing to work with you. I've done hangouts with mystery hangouts. They're always fun. I did put here for you guys a link when you go to here. These are Google Plus communities, and this is a Google Hangouts in education for educators. And you'll see people saying what they need, when they need it, and then you can respond to them and say, let's meet. I did that a few times. I did a mystery hangout where we didn't know where they were, and we had to ask them questions. And it turned out that they were in Maine, which was like really cool for the kids. Like they were very excited about that because they were talking to, they were 10th graders, they were talking to 5th graders, but they still liked the back and forth and working with them. So it was just like, is a very neat thing to do. Google Hangouts is also very nice if you want to find out something. Like there was a woman from New Jersey. They were interested in diversified seating arrangements, which I do have. So her students interviewed my students so that they could come up with a proposal for diversified seating in their classroom. So they had talked to me and other classes, but it was nice for my students to see a project another group was doing and then to start thinking what kind of project they would like to sort of do as well. And it was nice for them to interact with somebody from another state. So it's always nice to do these hangouts. We did a hangout this year for the project where you read about the Dot by Peter Reynolds, and then it's Dot Day. And we went ahead and did all these projects for Dot Day, and then we shared what we did for Dot Day with students in New Jersey. Again, the 5th graders we saw the year before, we just sort of shared with them our Dot Day projects, and it was really great for them to see us, for us to see them that day, and we also shared it on Flipgrid. So even if you have different time zones, you can find out different ways to still communicate with other places, but it does give you the advantage of seeing things from another place and talking with them. And when I did the Climate Action Project, we saw many other countries, what they were doing, how they were looking at climate change, and it does open up the kids' eyes and it opens up their world and they get to see other places. I believe it helps them with empathy and demystifying the ethnocentrism that they might have about a certain area or a place. So it's really nice to do. And then the last thing I wanted to go over was Go Formative. I have 2 webinars that I did here. You'd be able to click on those webinars, and I think it'd be great for formative assessment. And when I talk about formative assessment, I'm talking about where you can use formative as a way to see where your students are. You get to see them all working on one screen. You can track their growth if you're using multiple choice. I'm an English teacher, so I'm more into how are they answering the question, supporting it with evidence. You can link it to Common Core standards. It has a variety of activities, assessing a variety of skills. I did a blind formative last year with Great Gatsby where they hadn't read chapter 7, but I gave them quotes from it. They read the quotes. They tried to guess what was going on with the character's mindset and state of mind. And then as soon as I said, now we're going to read it, they all flew to their books and they were ready to go because they were like, what is happening? What's happening with the characters? So they were excited to read it. And then afterwards, they finished the formative once they got to that. And I always leave the formatives, and I'm going to go to formatives so I can show you. I always leave, this is a presentation that shows you how to do the formatives. But let me go ahead and go to formatives so I can show you. So when you go to formative, something nice about formative is you can build what you need for it. But when you go and you actually um, build a formative, and I'll show you one that my students did yesterday. So this sort of gets you the idea of what it looks like. So they did a warm-up. I had them write a raft about like what was going on with Antigone. Their warm-up answer was here. I was able to check the warm-up answers as they were typing them. I got to view their responses. I'll show you a class where everybody was there that day. I got to see, well, there were a couple of people asked in this class as well, but I got to see their answers. This is all of my classes, and I'll hide their names. And what you see is you get to see who's getting it and who may need a little bit more extra help or a push. And you sit there and you can send them messages back and forth. They were able to go to each question. Your questions appear up here at the top. So if a kid is asking you, I don't know what's going on with number 2, you don't have to then go out, and you can actually see the question. And then they answered the questions. And what I was able to do is see like where they are. And then some people even put like their answers in here so that they could remember the different things that they're doing. And some people just wrote it out. That's why 5 and 6 is a little different. So as a teacher, I can do multiple things with it. But when I'm making it, so I'm in the edit mode, I can, down here, I can tag a standard. So I can say what standard it is hitting. And then I can make it a short answer. I can make it, if I go in here, I can make it multiple choice, multiple selection. I can make it an essay. I can have them show their work or true or false. So it's really nice. And what I like about formatives is, and you'll see in the 2 videos that I made, it gives you the ability to make it so that you are guiding the students through the actual lesson, but you are giving them some freedom to go at their own pace and speed, so they're not feeling overwhelmed or they don't know what they are doing in terms of how they are going to be able to do the work that you're asking them to do. So all this formative assessment would be before I give them something summative. You know, we've been working on this, we've been doing these skills. Now let me check and see where you are. And you could use a formative for a summative, but most of the time they know when they see a formative, it's non-threatening, it's something that is engaging, it's something that I can see them doing, and I can respond to them right then and there and not go home and realize that half the class does not understand a concept that we're doing that day. I can stop and say, let's demystify whatever is going on in the classroom so that I'm able to then work a little bit more with the students the next day and not be finding out 2 weeks later when I finally get to my grading that that's what has happened. And we're already past that moment. And so it's not relevant to them. It doesn't make any sort of relevance or sense to them to go back and go over something. So I really like the program. They are doing several things with formative. And one of the things that they're doing is if you go up here in the section here and you go to the community center, there's a community center now that you're able to talk to other educators. You're able to go to different places and get badges, and eventually you could be formative certified educator like I am. So it's one of those things that you might want to do, especially if you want to talk to, if you really get into formative and you like it, and you want to talk to other educators and talk to them, how do you do this? How do you teach this? People will jump right on it, and if they don't even teach it, they'll find somebody that does, and they'll find a formative for you, and they're very helpful, and it's just a really nice community to be part of. And then if you have questions, you can contact me. I did put a extra part here about hyperdocs, because if you're really into, over the holidays, you have some time to yourself and you're like, I really want to learn how to do something, hyperdocs would be great. You could also look at this. I also went ahead and put my QR code. This is a Flipgrid grid that will be monitored so that you will not see it after you put your question in. It will actually come to me, though, through my email. So if you have any questions, you can send that and I'll get it right away and you'll be able to see it. So what I'd like to do is show you another thing that you can always do that would be helpful for you to do with students sometimes. I know it's really hard sometimes to put a URL in somewhere and you're like, how do I do that? So I'm going to show you something, since I was going to present this and now I'm not. So I just want to sort of show you how you would do this. So for this part 2, I could always go up here. A nice extension that is useful is anyone can view. Alice Keeler made that extension, and you can click it and then anyone can view it. And then you can go to share and you copy the link. And then once you do that, you can go into Google URL shortener. And once you get to that, then you're just going to simply paste in your URL, which is huge usually. You're going to say you're not a robot. You're going to shorten the URL. You'll be able to copy it. And then once you copy it, then you can put it right at the beginning of your presentation so that other people that get your presentation can just simply take that URL, type it in, and it's not long so that they mess it up, or something happens where you don't put the right thing in. And then you simply just leave it there for people to see. I sometimes then go a step further and I make it into a QR code. But this is nice if you have students that if you teach them this skill, especially for like portfolios and other things that they share, the URLs would be nice to get like smaller ones in case you want to put it in certain spaces. But I will go ahead and share that with you. And then once you go to present and you click on it, sorry, I have to get off of present actually. And once you go here and you make it actually live, sorry, and then you go ahead and you click on it, you would be able to then see the actual presentation there. So I hope that I'm helping people in my county, but elsewhere, to sort of see the ability that Google can do for teachers. There's a lot of things teachers can do with Google. I know that when it's not live, for the teachers to ask questions, especially if they want to know how to do something, it becomes troublesome. But if you guys could, anytime that you have questions, just ask, reach out to me. I'd be glad to show you anything that I've made, that I mentioned, that I didn't link. But I made this so that you could explore in your classroom and see what you could do to further help yourself as a teacher, and to, really the way I look at it is this. And I am going to now go to my screen, which you guys can probably see me now. But the thing that I look at is this. This week I had students, they're working on Antigone. I'm finding a couple students that are a little confused in terms of how things have gone, because we're reading a scene, one day, we're doing an activity the next, we're not reading it, straight through, we're trying to build upon the things. And so I was thinking I need to do something just to make sure they understand the key components of what happened in Antigone. And I was like, what can I do? At first, I was going to do little summary slides for them. I was going to give them all of the information and then have them do something with it. And then I really sat down and thought, no, I need to ask them questions on each slide. And if they can answer those questions, then I know that they're okay. Even though they don't know the exact, beginning, middle, end of the story, they'll be okay with that, and that we can talk beginning, middle, end so that we have it all together before we read the last 2 scenes next week. So I always at first have that teacher mindset that I want to help, but then I know that some of the things that I need to do is let my students let my students become better at what they're doing. So I'm hoping that this will help you, and let me know what I can do to help, and have a wonderful day.